Hello, everyone. Second time's the
There
charm.
we go.
We can be heard on stream now. Sorry, this is a slightly scuffed stream at the moment because Tavish got fail of the week last week and has not shown his face since. So I'm joined by left of me or Sir Pegasus and right of me or Kingsman. How are you two today?
Well, I think we've already got the fail of the week for week 4, and it's your frame rate at the moment. That is looking awful. But at least we have some working lights in the middle of the screen. And Kingsman, of course, always a joy to be joined by you.
Yes, we're back again. We shared the desk last night, and we're back for the second night in a row. How lucky are you guys? But we're back. Week 3 is over. A third of the season is complete. And some teams are like Mal's frame rate right now in the mud, and some are finding real highs at the top of the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's an intense season so far. We were looking at some scoreboards earlier, or leaderboards, or standings, whatever you want to call them earlier. It is definitely looking close, but that's a bit later on in the show. And they've already mentioned the frame rate. I will say vMix does not like my webcam, so I am stuck at this frame rate for the entire thing. We are using vMix, or at least this vMix setup, in a way that it has not been designed to use. So if at any point you suddenly can't hear me, that's just a sad reality of using vMix when you're also broadcasting. But either way, fingers crossed everything goes well. But let's get straight in with the results for Prospect this week.
Yes, we shall, and I'll start over in the Glacies Conference. A big week for Obscurity saw them secure the only 2 sweeps, and some results just not happening, apparently.
Oh.
But Obscurity got a sweep over Team Serene and a sweep over Volpez to secure themselves an 8-0 week, and the only team at that to go double win. And hopefully now, Mal has regenerated the fixtures so you can see them on your screen. Yeah, maybe.
Nope, it's not working. What a shame.
But I can walk you through them
Unlucky.
anyway. So, Primordial, who were down towards the bottom, find a win and a draw this week, a 3-1 over Komodos, who were also struggling, and Volpez, who were struggling, the only Volpez side to get a win for their franchise. They haven't found any more momentum since that win last week. But another rough week for Terra, who saw themselves draw with mid-table Spark and pick up a loss to high flyers Stratus. So their obscene week 1 they had slowly being cut into by the chasing pack.
Definitely, it's a close game. Sorry if it sounds like I'm not fully paying attention, but I am currently attempting to troubleshoot whatever is happening on this sheet. I'm not 100% sure. It might just be Prospect that's screwed up. Because looking at the data that I've got, every other tier seems fine. So I guess it's just... I mean, looking at this, Prospect seems fine. So who knows what we're about to see. But either way, that was Iglesias' side. Pegasus, while I try and fix this, why don't you talk about the Ignis side?
It's fine. I'm sure there are some teams that wouldn't want their results showed on the screen from this week. But as you cannot see, Livens get a double draw week versus Hysteria and Hot Metal, allowing Hot Metal and Newborn to play some catch-up at the top of the table. Alongside that draw, Hot Metal also swept 20 Riflemen. Newborn drew Rosius and beat Tartarus 3-1. However, Tartarus go positive by sweeping Protocol, which is their first series win. So a great start to winning ways there for Tartarus. 20 Riflemen, despite getting swept, also got their first series win versus Tomfoolery. And everyone, give some love in chat for Mal because he's doing it on the job.
Yeah, it finally started working again. I messed around with a few sheets imports. You know, technical stuff. I deleted a row and re-added it. Works every time.
Boring.
But there are your results for this first week, or this third week, sorry, of League play. Now we can jump across to what looks like, before I go across, a fully working and accurate standings. Kingsman, why don't you take it away with Glacies?
Good thing my notes are there in case. Terra, even though picking up their first loss this week, stay top on 16 wins. Stratus, Obscurity, Spark, Alter and Primordial, though, all 1 game win behind. First through 6, it's going to be a real scrap for those top 3 positions, as the gap between that and complete elimination from league play is 7th, is 5 win difference to Volpes on 10 wins, who failed to pick up a win this week. Komodo's also on 8 wins, 2 behind, 7 off the top 6. This is where you really see the gaps beginning to form. Kune pick up a second draw this week. It puts them on to 6 wins, and Crusaders pick up their first non-loss series. And would you guess it was against a team struggling above them?
We love to see a non-loss series for Fort Templar. We were considering putting them as the fail of the week for this week with how well their performance has been so far. It just hasn't been great for them, but like you said, the top half of this conference, incredibly close. Now we can jump across to Mr. Pegasus over in Ignis when VMix wants to update. There we go. How's it looking, Pegasus?
Well, we can see at the top of the table, Hot Metal, followed by Newborn, then Livens. Hot Metal and Livens actually having the same series split, both going with 3 wins, 3 draws, and 0 losses. However, it's Hot Metal securing those extra sweeps, getting those extra game wins that has them sitting alone in first place, with Newborn and Livens sitting 2 game wins behind them. The Nettle do hold on to their position due to having less series losses but more draws yet. However, they are yet to win a series. So 20 Riflemen, they do have a series win so far. However, they still sit 1 game win behind. And you can see there seems to be a very defined top 3. You could even say top 4 if you want to include Roses. But from about 5th to 8th, even down to 9th, there's definitely arguments on the fringe here of playing positions.
Definitely. The important thing to still note, especially for those teams that are lower down, unlike in the other conference where it is completely impossible, in this conference you can go from 10th up to what appears to be about 3rd if you have an insane week and everyone else has a horrible week. So definitely still a chance for everyone on that side to make it into, like you said, those playoff spots. But either way, across now to the fixtures. Why don't you take us through the interesting fixtures for this upcoming week in Glaciers, Pinchmen?
There are so many to pick from considering how close that top 6 is, but I want to point out Crusaders, who might be hoping their fortunes turn around. Sadly, they're not. They play Terra and Stratus 1 and 2. Terra with a 1-game win over the 5 teams chasing down their lead. So Crusaders could be in for a real tough week, and I think any result they can get there is a huge one. But looking in that top 6 scrap, Primordial play Spark 4th versus 6th. Spark also play Obscurity, both teams going undefeated in this week. So it'll be very interesting to see how those two march up, especially as Obscurity play Stratus as well. 2 of the high flyers in recent weeks. Can Obscurity keep their 8-0 form going, or will Stratus prove too difficult to beat? But so many good fixtures to pick out here, and there's a big chance this week for lots of movement. And if Terra don't pick things up, they could be staring down the barrel of a 6th place.
Oh, so it's definitely some interesting matches. Personally, I think Crusaders going to go 8-0 this upcoming week. They're going to catch everyone off guard. No one's going to see it coming.
Oh, dear.
Either way, let's go across to Ignis, where hopefully Pegasus has some interesting matches picked out for us.
Well, I think that the 13th is going to be a huge day for Ignis. First of all, you've got Tartarus versus Tomfoolery. This is 2 teams sitting only 1 game win between each other. And then you have Hot Metal versus Roses. Hot Metal being the team currently sitting in first place, and Roses sitting in 4th with only 3 game wins behind. That's only 1 behind 2nd and 3rd. So this could be a big week here for the Panthera roster, especially with them also playing 20 Riflemen, being the team sitting in 10th. But also on that day, of course, it's the classic 2nd versus 3rd. Equal game wins as it stands. Newborn versus Livens, looking to play that catch-up game with Hot Metal, and with Roses having a week that could really define their spot. That top 4 fight is going to be blossoming here in week 4.
Definitely. You've listed a load of interesting matches there, especially like you said, the 13th, when it seems like all of the good teams are going to battle it out. But either way, for all you prospect players, that is everything we have on this and the upcoming matches for your prospect side. So let's jump straight in to Challenger with the results. Kingsman, why don't you take it away with Glacies?
Yeah, and Sentinels have finally woken up. They are the team trying to carry Fort Templar in the franchise standings. A double win week over Tornado and Raijins sees them absolutely fly up the table. Raijins, who are clear at the top, go double loss this week, picking up their first 2 losses in the space of 2 games. A real heart blow for them, especially once we show you the table. Also, another team going double win is Shrine. They sweep aside a very strong Neptunium side, and they beat Volpez 3-1. A 7-1 week after 3 losses on the bounce. A real big week for them, and it's going to push them back towards contention. Also, as well, mention for Yukobo, who picked up their 2nd win this week against Raijins. So they pick up a 3-1 there. They also get a draw with Eclipse. In a very tough week, they managed to go positive. So it's a huge result for them. And the only team, or as I mentioned, to go double loss, sit at the top of the table.
It's definitely some good results all around there. I do want to ask Kingsman, okay, because I always pronounce it Ryujin. Is it pronounced how you said it, or are we both saying things wrong here?
Who knows? Don't care. Move on.
Damn. Well, let's move on to Ignis. Any interesting results there for you, Pegasus?
Oh, certainly. Starting off, we've got Feather getting a double win week to break away with a 7-1 record. They beat Week 3's first place team Mischief and also sweep Orcus here in Week 3. Canaans also land a sweep of their own versus Cypher. However, Cypher do get some points back with a win versus 20 Rook. Lunacy lend an impressive draw versus Apprentices, and the only other draw in this rather decisive week was 20 Rook versus Orcus.
Definitely some very, very equal looking matches there. I mean, that is all of your Week 3 results there for the Challenger tier. Let's very, very quickly jump across to the Challenger standings, which I've heard are very, very close for Glacies. So why don't you tell us how close it is, Kingsman, as you start us out here?
3 weeks in, and this looks like a table from 1 week. How competitive this has been the most competitive conference I've seen in ages. You are seeing this right. There are 4 game wins separating top of the table Ryujins from bottom side Neptunium. There is so much competitiveness in these teams. It's incredible to see that difference. And, well, I'll talk you through it. Ryujin's double loss keeps them top at 14 wins. So Pegasus Yukobo, an impressive positive week, leaves them second, tied with Eclipse. Then Shrine, Disorder, Sentinels, Ember and Tornado all on 12 wins. Only 1 game win off of second place from 8th. And only 2 off of first place. Volpez, the only side yet to pick up a win in this Challenger Glacies conference. They're on 10 wins. But Neptunium, who have picked up 2 wins and have been on recent form, sit below them. But remember, 1 good week could see them even shoot from 10th to 1st.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned in the prospect standings that it could be anyone's week. I don't think that's the case here. I think Ryujins take it away. It's not even close for them. But all jokes aside, it is such a close conference there that honestly, I don't think any of us can predict who would end up winning or even making it into the top 5 here, because it's just such a
Not
close...
Yukobo.
Damn. Definitely Sentinels though, right? Definitely Sentinels.
Yeah, of course.
Good. Well, speaking of those bad Team Serene players, why don't we take it to what is probably not as close of a standings over in Ignis. How's it looking over there, Pegasus?
Oh, talking to me, bad Team Serene players. Oh, I thought it could be anyone else. No, I'm just kidding, of course. But looking here at the Ignis conference here for Challenger, we do see Feather start to cement their first place spot. Of course, that coming after this double win week. There's now a 2-game win difference between themselves and Mischief. Mischief being the roster that was sitting in first place for those first couple of weeks. But I want to shift my focus to the bottom of the table to Capactly, who have gone 0-0-6 so far this season. However, they've managed to grab a game win in all 6 of those series losses. So despite Orcus having 2 series wins and a draw, they only sit ahead by 3 game wins. So definitely some chaos there that can happen at the bottom, and some things that Orcus would be very disappointed to drop to, but it just proves that every single game win counts, and that stands true here at the mid-table, where we see everyone very close. We see 3 teams on 12 wins, Canaan's 20, Rook and Lunacy, with Cypher only behind by 2 game wins, Pardus in front with 1, and Apprentices by 2, and that just follows all the way to the top of the table. So despite it being definitely a lot more spread out than the Glacies conference, there's definitely a lot of action waiting to happen here from mid-table, and a good couple of weeks can definitely change around these standings.
Definitely, and I mean, we already talked about earlier how funny it would be if in one of these weeks, Capactly goes from 006 to something like 107, and then they manage to overtake Orcus. So if you are an Orcus player listening, please can you throw both of your series next week and get double swept? Then we can see Capactly go higher than you with just an impressive scoreline to not be last with. But either way, those are your standings for Challenger. Now across to what could be some interesting matchups for next week. Pinchmen, why don't you tell us what you've seen over in the Glacies conference?
Well, to be quite frank, I could pick out any single one of these matches, considering there's 4 differences between those ones. But the ones that I'm looking to home in on, first of all, Sentinels versus Eclipse. Eclipse coming off a lost draw week and Sentinels double win. On paper, Sentinels have the momentum to take this, but Eclipse are looking to bounce back. And if they do it against Sentinels, their mentality will be they can push on in their big game against Tornado, trying to keep themselves in that top 3 spot. We mentioned Ryogens might be the ones to push on and keep the top of the table. They also play Tornado, and what could be a very tough week for Tornado, who have only 1 win in the last 4. And Ryogens have them to play, and Volpes, the only side yet to have a win in this conference, but yet they've managed to stick so close that anything could happen. 2 draws for them could propel them into that top 6 as they play Neptunium, the only other team on 10 wins. So surely, Mal, this week we'll see one of those teams get left behind.
Definitely. I mean, I'm hoping to see the Vulpes side get an extra 50% wins for the franchise as a whole, because they have been getting so many draws from what I've seen. And I mean, draws and losses, they aren't great at getting you up the scoreboard, but a few wins are. So hopefully the Vulpes side can get some wins, and the completely unbiased opinion from me of seeing Sentinels sweep both of their matches this week would be a great sight to see. But over in the Ignis conference, anything good there, Higgins?
Well, first of all, I want to look at that double header we've got for Pardus. This can be a very defining week for themselves, because they currently stand on 13 game wins, but both Lunacy and 20 Rook currently stand on 12. So both teams only 1 game win behind them. So it's going to be some very important series for them to play all in one day. Another doubleheader I noticed is Cypher playing both Feather and Capactly there on the 15th. Feather currently sitting at the top of the table by some distance as well. But earlier, we mentioned Capactly, we mentioned Orcus, this storyline that potentially Capactly, with their first win of the season, could be enough to push themselves ahead of Orcus if Orcus have a rough week. And that is very, very possible, because Cypher is currently the team sitting in 8th with 10 game wins. And after a match against Feather, they're going to have to face Capactly. And then Capactly's other game is very early in the week versus Orcus themselves. And then Orcus have to go on and play Apprentices, the team currently sitting in 3rd place. So who knows, Capactly could even go from 10th all the way up to 8th, leapfrogging both Cypher and Orcus with, well, for Cypher it would require 2 series wins, but with 1 series win, it's definitely possible to push past that Might of Hades side, and that would just be incredible. So I would love to see that, and I am a Kapakli fan for the week.
I mean, we're all Kapakli fans here. I will say I will pay the Cypher and Orcus players to throw their series just to see Kapakli get up to that 8th spot with basically, as we keep saying, not a very impressive overall team results so far. But either way, rivalry aside, that is the end of Challenger for this week and the outlook of I can't speak. This is why I'm usually behind the screen. The outlook of Challenger for this and next week. Now we can jump across to my favourite tier, and I mean, the tier that Kingsman belongs in, Rival.
I agree. Admins, if you're listening, move me down to Rival, please. I'll be more than happy to take that. But a big week for 2 teams who picked up their first win this season in the Glaciers Conference. Hydra's getting a 3-1 win onto Mokoteki, their first win of the season, and Flame getting a 3-1 win onto Sanctum, being their first win of the season. Big for them as they were both sat 9th and 10th. Be good to see how close it's brought them to the top 6. But a real shock to the system this week was that team going 7-1. It was shock. They get a 4-0 sweep over Volpez and a 3-1 onto Anarchy. Big week for them as they look to push on at the top of the table. Vanguards, though, stay unbeaten with a win over Flame and a draw with Uranium, whose last 5 results have all been draws. They're the other team that are unbeaten, but seemingly draw merchants as they draw with Anarchy and Vanguards this week. So how long can Uranium keep this up?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing great at drawing, especially this week. I will say, I think you mentioned earlier that the Challenger Fort Templar team was carrying the franchise. I will have you know it is 100% the Rival team that is currently carrying the franchise. But aside from that, it is such I mean, it's great results all around for everyone. And I do have a question for Pegasus before we go across to Ignis, okay? Who is in charge of naming the Team Serene teams?
It was
Yes.
okay. I can actually tell you this. It was myself and GC Exile. Me Pig was too dyslexic to do the names with us. So unfortunately, it was just us two. And unfortunately, we didn't make it very easy for him or anyone else. So apologies about that.
Well, there's everyone's explanation of who's to blame for the weird team names. But either way, how is Ignis looking results-wise, Pegasus?
Well, last week we had 6 whole draws and no sweeps in Ignis Rival. This time it was all or nothing. Now cut down to 4 draws, but with 4 sweeps to match. Tizok, to my knowledge, are the first team to go 8-0. Definitely the case in the Ignis Conference. I'm not sure if it is for the whole of RSC 14 so far. They get those results versus Journeyman and Recon. Ash also beats Journeyman, but also sweep Erebos to go 7-1 this week. The final sweep was Mirage versus Calico, being a Mirage victory. And all draws were picked up from 20 Robin and Psychosis, despite not playing each other.
I mean, that is impressive to do. Somehow managing to get so many draws and yet not actually managing to play against the opposing team. But either way, it is definitely, I mean, it's a range of results. Usually we don't see such a wide range of just sweeps and draws, but it is definitely a sight to behold over there. But that is your Rival results for week number 3. Over to the standings, which, looking at them, are glorious. Why don't you take us through the Glaciers standings, Kingsman?
Shock take the top of the table off of Vanguards. They've lost a series, but they get racking up the game wins. 17th for the top. Vanguards slipping down the table into 16th. Obviously doing well, meaning Mal must not be playing. Sanctum, they are sat in 3rd. They pick up their 2nd loss this week on 14 wins. Tied with Uranium, 5 draws and 1 sweep. Looks impressive on paper, but it doesn't get them into that top 3. Mokoteki, they don't find the win. Only 1 win in 4 leaves them on 13 game wins. Nightfall also same, 1 win puts them on 11. Anarchy, 1 win all season, and they're tied on 11 wins, just picking up the odd game as they go. Volpes, again, no game wins for them, but they sit above 2 teams who do have a win on 9 wins. And then Flame on 8 wins, and Hydras, who were 0-4, picking up a win and a draw this week to move them closer to Flame.
And I would like to say, before we continue, it is a bold move, Kingsman, making fun of the person who is able to do whatever he wants to on your screen when we go back to the caster view. So it's definitely a bold strategy, but well, you're lucky this week that I can't really edit stuff on you while also talking, because I don't have that kind of focus. So while I consider what I can do to get back at Kingsman, why don't you take it away with Ignis, Mr. Figgis?
Of course, well, we see a different top 3 than what we saw last week, and it will be all the teams that picked up all the sweeps this week. Tizok, Ash, and Mirage take those spots. Tizok currently sitting with 18 game wins, Ash with 16, and Mirage with 14. And one thing I failed to pick up on earlier, Mirage's sweep this week was their only series win so far of the season, and the only result that wasn't a draw. They've got 1 series win, 5 draws, and 0 losses. So it's interesting that they found their way that high in the table. It's all about consistency. Recon, unfortunately, with a draw and a loss, do drop from being first place all the way down to 4, but are very much still in that conversation for those 2nd and 3rd spots, definitely, if they have a good week. And then it was movement all the way down the bottom half of the table. 20 Robin and Onka advancing 3 placements each into 5th and 6th. Caligo and Erebos dropping 3 themselves, and Journeyman only dropping by 2. Psychosis do gain 4 of their 7 game wins this week. So a team that could be on the up and could see themselves getting back into the main competition.
Definitely, it is still, I mean, it's early enough that any team can recover from being, like you said, with Psychosis, at 7 wins, which isn't great this far in, given that it's an average of about 2 wins per week, which it could be better, is the way I'm going to put that. But either way, heading into future weeks, it is still possible for any of these teams to perform well enough to make it in. I feel like I keep saying that because it is still early enough that any mistakes can be rectified with roster changes or just spending more time playing with your teams. But either way, that is the end of the rival standings. Why don't we jump across to the rival fixtures coming up for next week? Why don't you take it away with Glaciers?
Yes, and that I shall. First versus second game, ladies and gentlemen. Vanguards, who are unbeaten, play the top of the table Shock, who will be looking to charge on from their very impressive week and put some ground between themselves and Vanguards. They also have Flame, so a loss could see them still go positive with that game against Flame. However, looking towards the mid-table with Sanctum versus Mokoteki, both teams picking up both teams picking up losses in that week. Sanctum the only one to win, and it's going to be a big game of which teams can bounce back there. Also, Sanctum have Uranium, so 2 wins will see them push back in the table. But let's be honest, we know that's going to be a draw already. We can write that in pencil, so we can keep that there. Also, in terms of play-in spots, Anarchy play Nightfall. A win for those teams will see them hold on to that 6th place spot, with their respective other games being against Hydras in 10th and Nightfall playing Volpes in 8th. So some big games in the mid-table, but it could all change in that mid-table spots.
Definitely. So everyone keep their eyes out for that first versus second match. I'm going to do what I keep doing and predicting it being 8-0 this week for the Fort Templar team. It's going to be impressive when they get 8-0 in every single tier. It's unheard of, but either way, without someone laughing at me to my left, I am going to take it across to the Ignis conference. How's it looking over... Wait, no, hold on. I've got the wrong thing. We aren't on that yet. I'm confusing myself. Let's go. We are going across to Elite on the Glaciers conference. Wait, no, we are going to... I'm so confused right now. we are going to the Ignis Conference with Pegasus taking it away.
Indeed we are, and all the action actually starts off today with a double header for Caligo, who's got some very tough opponents actually to start the week. They're going to have to play Recon, which at the end of week 2 were the team sitting in first place, and they've also got to play the new team that's crowned at the top, Tizok, straight afterwards. So it's going to be a rough day there for Caligo, but if they can pick up some game wins out of that one, they would have made the most of what looks to be a very tough week for them. But also, there's plenty of matches happening at the lower end of the table. Psychosis definitely have a tough match having to play Tizok, but equally, they do get to play Journeyman, the current team sitting in 9th place. Just a reminder, Psychosis are sitting in 10th. So some opportunity there to play some catch-up, but Journeyman get to play the team on the other side of them as well. It's Erebos sitting in 8th, only 1 game win ahead of them. So it can be a very defining week for the lower positions and trying to get themselves back into those play-in spots.
Definitely, I'm not going to lie, my headphones disconnected halfway through what you said, so everything that Pegasus just said is 100% true and accurate, and if he says a team is going to win, they're going to win. Either way, now that I've figured out what is going on the stream, we are heading across from Rival to the results from this week that's just ended for Elite. Kingsman, why don't you take it away with Glacies?
Well, considering Pegasus has said Mal's rival team are about to go 0-8, Mal has agreed, ladies and gentlemen, so let's just leave that there for a second. But if we look towards Elite now, there's only one sweep, and it goes for Severance over Volpes again. A big 4-0 for Severance, and a draw with high-flying Temple will allow them to push forward towards that top 3. But one team I do have to mention is Shinjiru, who beat high-flying Leviathans this week. And that's one team unbeaten in Temple. A mega week for them. I thought it would be good to go positive, let alone get 2 game wins. So that's very impressive from them. Darkness, though, can't push on. They only get 2 draws against Centurions and Blaze. So a very slow week for those teams at the top, with only 1 game win being produced by the top 3 in Leviathans. And the teams in the mid-table are slowly climbing back, as you will see.
Definitely, it's some good results all round if you are not Vulpes this week, because it has been not the greatest for them. I will say it's quite bad that when you were saying the team names, as soon as you said the Team Serene one, I instantly knew it was them because of how awkward of a name it was to pronounce. Please, Pegasus, next season, get some easier team names. Either way, let's go across to the Ignis Conference. What are we seeing there, Pegasus?
Listen, you can get rid of a fuser, but you can't get rid of the culture. Someone had to fill in that spot with the tough names. But same as last week in the Ignis Conference for Elite, there was only 1 draw in the week. This time, it was between Insanity and Echelon. At the beginning of this week, Insanity was sitting in 2nd, and Echelon were sitting in 9th. So despite it being a draw, that is actually a crazy good result. So fair play to Echelon. My compliments for them continue as they followed up that great result with a 3-1 win versus Scorch. The only sweep this week was Deception versus Tigris, and they made the most of it as they went 7-1 with another win versus Bladesmiths. Thanatos, the second and last double win team this week with victories against Bladesmiths and 20 Raven. That was the very same 20 Raven team that also lost to Carbo 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some interesting results. Sadly, 20 Raven having 2 losses that week. It's not the results you're thinking, but I do have, before we go to the next one, Pegasus, I do want to know, what would your opinion be if next season we just limited it, you could only have team names be 5-letter long, valid English dictionary names? What would you think of that?
English dictionary names, I would say that we are a European tournament, so we should allow any European language at least, and then I'll go and try and find some Danish ones.
I knew you were going to find a way to ruin it, but either way, that was your results for week number 3 across now to the standings for Elite. How's it looking there in Glaciers, Kingsman?
It's looking a lot closer. Darkness hold their lead on 17 wins. Temple on 15, no, they don't make a dent into it. And Leviathans keep third place on 14 wins. But High Flyers, Shinjiru, double win week, leaves them 1 game behind. Severance is 6-2 week as well, puts them only 1 win off of Leviathans in what is going to look to be a stressful week ahead for Leviathans. Centurion just under the radar in 12 wins, along with Blaze and Saturnia. Those teams all going under the radar, 2-2-2, all on 12 wins. Goal difference keeps Centurions in the top 6. And then there's a 5-game win gap between Volpez to Saturnia in 8th place, and Cyclones yet to pick up even a draw or a win on 5-game wins. Slam dunk at the bottom of the table.
You're telling me right now that Cyclone are currently 0-6, just like the Aztec Challenger team?
Yes, I am telling you.
Damn, I didn't actually
only
look
2
at
wins
those.
off. Two game wins off Volpez, so we could have it in Elite potentially.
We could have the same thing happen in 2 separate tiers. That would be the week if it ever happened. But I will say, I did know about the Challenger one. I didn't know about the Elite team that was doing 006, but now we all know about both teams. Why don't we hop across to the Ignis conference to see if there's any surprises there from Pegasus?
Well, it's a huge difference going from 1st to 10th here as you start to see it pop up on your screen. With only 1 draw and a bunch of decisive results, you're going to see a bunch of arrows except for 10th place Tigris, who currently sits on 0 series wins, 1 series draw, and 5 series losses. Actually the same as 9th place Bladesmiths, but they've only got a 2-game win difference between them. As you can see, there's a huge difference between 1st and 10th. But a win-loss week does see Atlacoya lose their seat in 1st. That spot now taken up by Insanity and Deception, who currently sits on the same game wins. But at the middle of the table, it continues to be close, with Carbo on 14, Thanatos with 12, Scorch with 12, and actually 20 Raven and Echelon both on 10. And Echelon, they did have a fantastic a fantastic week this week, having a draw and a win to add to their record. So that will see them go ahead Bladesmiths and actually add them into those arguments yet again to try and fight for those play-ins positions. Just seems like Tigris are really the team at the moment that are holding all the series losses at the moment. But just like before, only a 2-game win difference between themselves and Bladesmith. A very good week could see that change, but if you look at the goal differences, something needs to happen here in defense.
I would argue something needs to happen in offense as well, because they really aren't scoring enough goals. You can make up a goal difference by scoring or saving, preferably both, and then you'd really zoom up in the goal difference. I will say, I'm glad it's not like a few of the other tiers where you have one conference that's miles apart and the other one where it's super, super close. At least in Elite, it seems pretty even across the board, but those were your week 3 standings for Elite. Now across to the upcoming matches of week number 4. Kingsman, why don't you take it away with the Glaciers conference?
Yeah, Temple didn't find a game win in their week 3, but they have a brilliant opportunity as they play Cyclone, who are yet to find a draw or a win, and they play Centurion, so a big opportunity there for them to push forward and get a gap to 3rd place. However, Leviathans chasing also play Centurions. So if Centurions could do what Shinjiru did, then it'd be like deja vu, and we'll have to come back in a week's time, see if they've done that, or they've done what I thought would happen to Shinjiru last week, and they go a double loss. Either way, good games across the table. I talked about Shinjiru and Severance chasing down the top 3. They play each other this week on Wednesday. A big game to see who is really fighting for that top 3 contention. Severance's other game being against Blaze in 7th, a real way to gatekeep them out of the top 6, and Shinjiru's other game being against Volpez, a way to push them even further away from that top 6, but all going to be exciting games that I mentioned. But it'd be interesting to see which teams are holding on to the top 6 spots and if the top 3 can be disrupted.
Definitely. Now, Pegasus, you are an expert on both Team Serene and losing. Do you think Team Serene are going to lose their matches this week?
What the hell, man? What do you mean? What do you mean? I'll have you know, Elites are on very, very good form at the moment. They had 2 great results last week. So you know what? Shout out my Elite team. I think they're going to continue that run.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Ignis Conference, Pegasus. Who do you think's going to lose in the Ignis Conference this week?
Well, starting off, actually, I do want to focus on today. Everyone loves a double header. Carbo have that. This is the current team sitting in 4th place with 14 game wins. They play 9th and 10th place team at the moment. That is Tigris and Bladesmiths all today, and then it is week over. Theoretically, these should be 2 fairly easy results for them if this statistics speak true, so we'll see at the end of the day if that does follow through. But the week to watch here is for at Lakoya, the team sitting in 3rd with 16 game wins, with only Deception and Insanity in front of them with 17. They play both of them this week. I believe it is today and tomorrow. So again, plenty of action here at the early stages of the week, and I'm very interested to see how that unfolds. Also, I believe Echelon do play Bladesmiths. That's an 8th versus 9th matchup. If Echelon are able to continue their great form, that does put them into playing's conversation. Yet, if they do lose, Bladesmith kind of share that position with them, but it won't be as strong as before.
Definitely. I'm glad you listed all of those teams after I said who is going to lose. So it sounds like he's thinking everyone in Ignis is about to lose this upcoming week, which it'll be an interesting sight to see if it does happen. But those are your week 4 elite fixtures. Now onto the final tier, arguably the worst tier, especially looking at the results that are about to appear on the screen. There's this one team called Dominion who seems to be absolutely tryharding at the moment. Why don't you let us know about it in the Glaciers Conference, Kingsman?
I wasn't going to mention them, actually. But I was going to mention Volpes again. And Volpes management are going to get sick of me mentioning them. But they've gone double win! Volpes team being mentioned for good reason, as Volpes beat Tempest. And they beat High Flyers Inferno in what I think totals their franchise wins to 3. So a real big week from them as they go 6-2 alongside Wyverns, who go 7-1. A big week from them, allowing them to push on in the top of the table. But Inferno, they pick up a loss and a draw. And that top 3 fight was looking down as well for Sovereigns, who I said last week had a very tough week against Dominion and Wyverns. And they've gone 1-7. They will fall into that chasing pack. But another team to mention that are on the rise is Haven. They went 3-1 against Shokan and got a 2-2 draw against Abyss, slowly coming back from that last place after week 1.
Definitely, it's some good results, except for the 2 Sovereigns ones that I'm currently tipexing off my screen. We don't need to see those results. It is a sad week for a team that was doing well, but definitely, like you said, Wyverns are on the tear right now, and I feel like their only hope to be stopped at the moment is that Dominion roster. But either way, those were your Glaciers results. Now across to the Ignis Conference. How's that looking, Pegasus?
Oh, it's looking very interesting. But first of all, I do want to say, very good week there, Kingsman. I saw you on stream. You're doing very well at the moment. But enough of that. Moving on to Ignis. Infinity's doubleheader sees an on-stream 3-1 victory versus Illusion and a draw to Vulcan straight afterwards. Illusion also lost versus Manipulation, which actually gives Manipulation their first series win of the season. Is all wins for Leo and Mania, with Mania sweeping Hades and going 7-1. It was also a sweep for Nox versus 20 Rock. Vulcan, despite their draw against top team Infinity, also face a loss versus Hades. So this team, which looked so strong in week 1, still haven't been able to catch up their results of which they started with.
Definitely, there's some impressive results coming out of that Ignis Conference. Now then, Kingsman, don't mention where Fort Templar is on this next screen, but let's go across to the Master Standings for week number 3. Take it away with the Glaciers Conference.
Wyvern still unbeaten at the top, 19 wins. I believe that's the most wins we have out of any team so far. So good job to them as they are 19 wins at the minute, tearing through the Glacies Conference. Then you have Dominion on 16th, climbing above Inferno, who have a week to forget, picking up their first loss. Haven then sit 3 wins behind. It's a big gap, but it's very catchable. Then Volpez, a big double win week for them, sees them climb up 3 spaces into 5th. And Sovereign, who were 4th going into this week, dropping 2 spaces down and now 4 game wins behind the top 3. They sit on 11 wins, tied with Shokan. Abyss, they sit in 8th, on 9 wins, tied with Iovi, who are yet to pick up a series win. And Tempest, 6 wins, but they have picked up a draw. But they've got a new roster, so it'll be very interesting what they can produce.
Definitely, a new roster always brings up some randomness for the league table. Hopefully that randomness works in favour of any team making a roster change, because it is always sad to see a roster change and then a team do the same or worse. But either way, that is your Master Glacies standings. How's it looking over in Ignis, Mr. Pegasus?
Well, the top of the table in terms of first place, actually looking very similar to Glacies. We have a team with 5 series wins, 1 series draw and 0 losses, and 19 game wins to stand at the top. They continue to go undefeated. Leo, sitting right behind them, do have 5 series wins and 1 series loss, which came all the way back in game week 1. That team they lost to was that Mania team, currently sitting in first. So you can see week 1 results play a factor further down the line in the season. Vulcan do drop into the mid-table mix as Manipulation climbs up a bit after being in 10th. As you can see, at the bottom, there's still arguments to be made that any of these teams could find their way into that 6th place spot and get themselves that play-in position. Montezuma only 4 behind current standing Nox. But that's because all the game wins currently hogged by those top 3 teams, Mania, Leo, and Infinity, which have just been so consistent as the season has gone on.
Definitely, and I feel like the master rosters in Ignis trying to make a tongue twister with Mania, Manipulation, and Montezuma. I bet you couldn't say that 5 or 6 times fast, because, I mean, why are there so many syllables in so many franchises' names? Why can't you just have simple, easy to pronounce names like Nox and Leo? That's the only time you'll hear me say a nice thing about Panthera. But either way, that is your master standings at week number 3 across. Now, to the upcoming fixtures of this week. How's it looking in Glacies, and are there any interesting matches, Kings?
Well, Inferno
Inferno
have a big week as they play Sovereigns and Wyverns. A big game for Inferno. Wyverns, if they manage to pull off a draw there, it'll be a good bounce back for them, and they play Sovereigns, who struggled last week against the teams at the top of the table. So Inferno come out top there. It's not going to be looking good for Sovereigns, who other game is tonight against that Tempest rebuild, and we can really see what that Tempest side has to offer. Can they send Sovereigns packing even further down the table and push themselves up with a first series win? We shall see. I also mentioned Volpez went on a tear last week. If they can keep that up, and they play Shokan in 7th, and they also play Abyss in 8th, so another good chance to push towards that top 3 spots from where they were last week. It's an impressive feat, but can they keep it going? As down towards the bottom of the table, Abyss obviously playing Volpez. Their other game is against Iovi. A good chance for both those sides on 9 wins to push towards the top 6. So really, anything can happen this week, but beware, that top 3 could be changing.
Definitely, and I am going to mention I'm a bit sad on the upcoming fixtures list that it goes Death Cloud Esports, Team Serene, and then 2 of Vulpes, 2 of Brave, 2 of Symbiotes,
Oh my god,
2 of Systema Solaris. It was almost perfect, but there is a lot of double matches there. I mean, you see Vulpes and Inferno both doing both of their games on the same night. That's just, I mean, that's terrifying to think about for the stats team, and I feel sorry for them when those matches get reported. But either way, over to the Ignis conference. Are there any interesting matches there?
Well, this whole week is the top 4, maybe even the top 5 battling against each other. Infinity will play both first and second place. By the way, Infinity currently sitting in third. They will play Mania and Leo this week. Also, we do see Leo playing, I believe it was Hades, the team currently sitting in 5th. And then Mania, currently sitting in 1st, do play 4th place Vulcan. So plenty of movements possible in about the top 5 actually of the table. Nox, however, also playing Manipulation. Nox currently sitting in 6th and Manipulation sitting in 8th. Both of these rosters. Those are your battles to find those play-in positions as well. But all top of the table. Hopefully we can get some on stream because Master has actually been very entertaining this season.
Definitely some interesting matches coming up there in Ignis, but that is the end of the weekly recap for every single tier. Now, the last thing to finish off the weekly recap, we have the franchise standings, starting with the bottom 10 franchises, making sure to emphasize Team Serene's position relative to Fort Templar. Please take it away, Kingsman.
Okay.
Well, Volpez 3 series wins, but 14 draws keeps them at the bottom. Only 1 game. 20 are then in 19th on 49 wins. Only 1 difference, but only four series wins separate them. Fearless then move up 1 spot on 52 wins, only behind Might of Hades by 1 on 53. Death Cloud, their lower tiers, putting in an absolute shift for the slack in the upper tiers. They're on 55. Tied with Azteca in 55, another team with an 0-6 team. Then Team Serene and Fort Templar both tied, but on goal difference. Fort Templar will be your side in 13th place and Team Serene in 14th. Panthera in 12th, 3 game wins ahead. And Forge are going to be 60-60 positive, but they sit in the bottom 11. Now I want Pegasus to mention Symbiotes in relation to the 2 teams I mentioned.
Damn, well, we will go across to that top half. Why don't you take it away, Pegasus?
Well, starting on in 10th place, it is Systema Solaris. This was a team originally in, I want to say, 1st or 2nd place in week 1, but they've had a bit of a decline since then, but still very much in those arguments because it is fairly close at the top with Brave Esports, Alpha Surge, and DSQ all following by only 1 game win. Then we have Shadow Esports sitting on 65, Legend Mania on 67, Illusory on 67, and Symbiotes on 67. And a lot of that actually coming from, I must give some respect to Kingsman Gas's master roster, which has actually been the best tier for Symbiotes so far. Sanctuary sits in 2nd place with 68 series wins, but then you have to look at the top. Green Phoenix with 76 game wins. Leagues ahead of Sanctuary, leagues ahead of the rest of the competition. They've got their elite team, which are going on with a 50% record. Their second lowest is 62.5% coming from Prospect. So just insane so far from Green Phoenix, and we'll see if they can continue that.
Definitely, it is great standings all round for those top 10 teams. It is just a shame to see Symbiotes so high with such a fraud on their master roster. I don't know how they manage it. But either way, that is the end of...
Audio, Mal?
Yeah, see, that's what you get for disrespecting me as a master player. You are not allowed audio. How dare you try and insult me when I'm getting carried by Dansku every week?
Silence!
I'm back. I think I've made it back. It's the fun of every single time I transition to a new scene. I have to remember to unmute my mic because, like I said at the start, VMix is not, or at least this VMix is not set up for my mic to be on it. But we're back with Laggy Cam. We're here with Very Cool and Stinky. I mean, what more could you want on your stream? I mean, we've got clip and fail of the week coming up. So we will start with, hopefully, if I can manage to set it up correctly and not break everything, which I'm currently doing a horrible job of, we will have clip of the week. So I mean, we'll run through it twice so I actually have time to put the poll in chat. So we will see you after it has run through twice. Well, we've made it there. It only took another attempt at the audio. You know, sometimes it's got to be like that. I've managed to get the poll out fast enough that I do not need to run the clip a second time. I mean, it's a fun time broadcasting and also talking as the host. But what did you two think of those two clips while we have the vote running? Why don't you take it away first, Kingsman?
Well, everyone's hyping up this Avelios goal. I would like to point out some context. Number one, they are 6-1 down. He did not win that game. So the opponents were probably just absolutely in paradise. Second of all, it bounced. Awful. How dare it bounce? 159 kilometers per hour ceiling pinch bounces? Yeah, no, awful. But no, very good from a rival player himself. But honestly, shout out to Mr. Poggy. This got to be the most unique clip I've seen in a while. Pogo saves off the goal line and a lovely flick over the last defender. And even better for Mao, he's on his franchise, as you couldn't tell.
Yeah, there is some sad news. Sorry to cut you off there, Pegasus. As much as that was a player of mine, I have heard just before we went live that may have been from a scrim, therefore not valid for clip of the week. I don't know how true it is because I just get sent clips. I don't do the editing.
Is this fraud? What?
So it may
That's
in
against
fact
the rules.
be a
It's against the
fraudulent
rules.
clip. So
What the
yeah,
hell?
it's confirmed in chat by Conflict that it was done in free play. I'd heard that it was. I wasn't sure.
Wow.
Luckily, it's not the one that won. But before we talk about who won, why don't you talk about which one you liked the most, Pegasus?
Charizard wants a shout out in chat. I thought your clip was alright, but it's not going to be my pick for the week. For me, it was actually either going to be Avelios or Mr. Poggy. I think if Avelios just pressed his B button, his circle button a few times and hid the scoreline at the top of the screen, it would be the best clip of the week. It'd be way more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
seeing that 6-1 at the top really does kill it a little bit. For me, Mr. Poggy would have won if he didn't technically cheat. So that's a DQ for Mr. Poggy. And the win has to go to Avelios. It was definitely the best clip other than that.
I mean, it looks like chat agrees with you. 8 votes in favour of Avelios, 5 in favour of Mr. Poggy. It was close between the two of them. If Mr. Poggy had have won, Avelios would have won it on the technicality, like we said. It was made in a scrim and not in a league match. But either way, we will run through the clips one more time. Hopefully, I'll remember to unmute my mic after this next one. Who knows? We'll see. But once again, here is your clips of the week for this week.
No, don't, Mal.
Well, while them two argue about whether or not that was a valid clip because of the fact that it bounced off the post and crossbar, Ivelios was your winner of Clip of the Week. It was a great clip. Now, before we start this, I will like to say for Fail of the Week, I owe the team getting Fail of the Week a slight apology because I didn't look at the standings before and only heard about this from one of the players. You'll understand when you see it. I would say there is a team that did worse, but here is your Fail of the Week for this week of League Play.
Wait, we got to mention Cyclones then. What the hell?
I know, I
Cyclones
said
get robbed.
this.
Stop! That was so messed up. Look, I have personal beef with Kapakli, okay? Azteca Challenger with a team that beat me in the grand finals last RSC season. But even I think that was too far, Mal. No need for that. No need for that. Oh my goodness.
Not even the worst team in RSC at the minute. They're just cruelly roasted.
Oh
what the
my
hell?
god.
Like I said, I owed them an apology because I did not realise that there was another team that did worse than that. I only knew because I was playing Rocket League with Shin last night and he was mentioning how his team was 0-6. So that is where it all came from. Apologies to the players of the roster. Yeah, I know, it's great. They can actually put a face behind the person who did that.
Yeah, that's disgusting. That's disgusting.
But either way, moving away from that Fail of the Week, we now have the weekly awards, starting with Prospect. Why don't you take it away, Kingsman? Tell us who all the good people are from Prospect this week.
Yeah, I will do that. And it's Passy KDO, your MVP, 575 points a game, and Charizard gets another shout out from me. I hope that's Charizard. 2.25 goals per game. Samuel Horsfield is your striker, 66.67 shooting percentage. Mustafa with 1.75 assists per game, and Smokey Bear will be your savior with 2.5 saves per game.
Definitely, it feels like Char might be appearing slightly too much on the stream at the moment. I don't actually remember who the team of the week is, but let's hope it's not him because I think that will be too much Char for 1 week. Either way, across to Challenger. Why don't you take it away when it decides to load, Pegasus?
Of course I will. Obviously, it's here. I play him, but I don't expect to see myself anywhere. Starting off, it's DSQ's Jason Carmi with about 550 points per game, followed by Butt Snorkeler 54 and Gregor Bummer. And then AR taking the shooting percentage and the goal per game awards, finisher and striker with a 2.0 goals per game, coming from a 70% shooting percentage. That is extremely impressive there. And actually, I do want to point out Butt Snorkeler and Jason Carmi also on 2.0 goals per game. And then for assists per game, it is DSQ's Nations. Yet again, saviour. It is a MASH 56. And if you want to see some more DSQ, some more Jason Carmi, you can also see him sitting in bronze for the Playmaker Award as well. So overall, looks like it was a fantastic week for some of these DSQ players.
Definitely, but either way, now that we have seen Challenger, all that is to follow is Rival. When it decides to load, Kingsman, why don't you take us through the list of names?
We talked about Char, but I wonder if we'll see the better Pokemon in Blastoise up here in one of the higher tiers. But the MVP is Trout on 507 points per game, and your finish will be Matrix. Don't know how he's managed that. 1.67 goals per game. Then Monkey with 80% shooting will be your striker And then Dandarank will be your playmaker, 1.5 assists per game. And Trout showing why he's the MVP with 2.25 saves per game, tied with Sen and Arnar. There is a very much lack of sharing these awards.
Definitely. Everyone wants to have their own award and keep as much of it as possible. This time it's loaded quickly, though. So Pegasus very quickly over into Elite. Why don't you take us through that one?
Well, a fantastic week for DSQ as they have another player getting the MVP. This time it is Vessel, and then it is my very own Kieran there with the goals per game. 1.5 actually followed equally by Dote and then Evie on 1.38. Evie being the player to get the Striker award as well with just over 50% shooting percentage. Then GMB with the Playmaker, the assist per game of 1.5. And then finally, it is Vessel yet again, showing why he's the MVP, just like his DSQ comrades before, with a 2.88 saves per game.
Definitely, and I've noticed a lot of these MVPs are coming from Saviors. Let's see if that is the case in Master Kingsman.
Probably not, with Skaze being your MVP, 506 points per game, Monkey Mode being your finisher, taking it off Skaze. They're sharing awards. Storm, though, from that roster being your striker, Datho being your playmaker of 1.38 assists per game, and at least Sovereigns have something to take away from this week, and it's going to be D Lynch picking up the saviour with 2.88 saves per game.
Definitely, and you've also got to realise that Comster is also there in second place. That just goes to show how outclassed they must have been that two of their players are getting the top saviour for the week. But either way, those were your weekly awards. Now, Mr. Pegasus, why don't you take it away with the team of the week for week number 3?
And we will start off with Prospect as per usual. We start off with C here for Shadow Esports, followed by in the Challenger tier, Gregor Bomber of Green Phoenix, Trout of Death Cloud Esports, Evie of Illusory, and Jeffer of Legend Mania. We've got a nice split there with 5 different organisations having a player of the week. Congratulations to Evie, Gregor Bomber, Trout, Evie, and Jeffer.
Did you say Evie twice there?
He did.
I may have missed out C. Shout out C. Double shout out C. There you go.
I was really confused when Evie appeared twice, but either way, those are your teams of the week. Also, Deathclad Esports is not allowed a team of the week because their franchise name is too long. I've had to make that font so small now that it is barely readable on the hexagons. But those are your teams of the week. They are the best of all of the players who played 8 games this week. But back to us now.
I really wish I heard what Mal was saying.
Yeah,
be
so
brilliant.
Actually, I'm quite happy. I think we should stay like this.
I disagree personally. I disagree. But back to us. Usually we are supposed to follow this on with fantasy, as has been the running thing for 2 weeks now, and it will follow on to the 3rd. We do not have fantasy. It has not been fully set up. It is mostly my fault, I'm not going to lie. Usually I get away with it because I'm not on the stream. This time I can't avoid talking about it. I just haven't got around to setting it all up on the VMix thing. But what I will say is, at least now, that brings us to our final thoughts. So before we talk about our sponsors, Kingsman and Pegasus, do you have anything to say about this week that has passed?
Oh, well, I'm going to be closely watching Kingsman Gas's side, seeing if they can maintain their great form at the moment, or if he'll go back to being the fail of the week merchant he used to be for many seasons in a row. We'll see if Mal can get himself a better camera. We'll see if Tavish will return with some of the lights recommended by Shout Out Dank Avocado, who had plenty of DMs recommending him different light sources. And of course, as the resident caster, please follow the Twitch, because streams, we hope to be back again here for week 4. There's plenty of action in every single conference, every single tier, it feels like, and hopefully I will be there for some of them.
Definitely. Anything from you, Kingsman?
Well, I want to see Kapatli go 8-0 this week. I'm rooting for Kapatli now. I am watching Kapatli. I am rooting them on. No team deserves to be disrespected like that. What the hell? Go 8-0 for me, prove Mal wrong, and then you'll get clip of the week instead. But yeah, we're week 3. There's still 6 weeks to go. Lots of roster changes being made at this pass. So it'll be very interesting to see how these things shape up, especially Challenger Glacies, where we could see Sir Pegasus as low down as 10th place next week. He is hoping not, but there's plenty of time for changes. But hopefully not for myself in Master.
Definitely, and I would also like to say, as much as I did put Kapakli in for fail of the week, I am probably one of the biggest Kapakli fans in the entire league. As much as I joke about them being 006, I do hope to see them do well. But that will be all from us. All we have to do is thank the sponsors. And unlike Tavish or Mox, no, it was Mox, wasn't it, on the power rankings, who was an admin and forgot the sponsors. I do know that the sponsors are badass. Brave Esports, Systema Solaris, the Pinchmen, and Team Serene. You see, that is how you do it, Mox. But from us 3 tonight, thank you to both of them for helping out. That is going to be all. So have a good night, everybody.